What's going on, everybody? I just wanted to take a couple minutes today to show you guys how to install one of the skeletonized triggers from Armory Craft. I did have a video of me taking the stock hammer off, but the genius that I am forgot to hit the record button or turn the microphone on, so I didn't have any sound. So we'll just start doing it again, and I'm starting with the grips off. Armory Craft has been awesome. They gave me a coupon code for you guys. It's Hammer5. I'll post it down in the link below so that you guys can use that for $5 off your hammer. But let's get started. Start out by locking the slide back and then sliding the takedown lever forward to field strip the gun. You get the top off. Now we're looking at the frame with all the goodies in it. The first thing I'm going to do is take down the takedown lever out. So I'm going to do that by pushing on the back side of it and then just twisting it, and it'll come out pretty easy. Just be gentle with it so you don't scratch anything up, but just twist it and it'll come right out. And then your locking block, you can just lift that straight out, and then the spring just sits with it, so the spring will probably flop out too. It's no biggie. Then make sure it's decocked. We'll go ahead and take the hammer strut, the spring, and the spring seat off. You'll notice there's a little slot in the back for doing that. Just go ahead and stick a flat screwdriver there or anything that you can use to get leverage. Put your fingers on the top of the seat and then just push up and bring it out. The seat will come right out, and then you can just pull the strut and spring out with it as well. And then the next step, we'll go ahead and take the spring from the trigger bar off. You'll notice that there is a little hook inside of it, right there, that it hooks into, the little slot inside the trigger bar. So we're just going to go ahead and lift that down and off of the trigger bar itself, and then just give it a little twist and it'll come out of the frame. And then once we get that done, there's not going to be any pressure on your trigger, so just make sure that you don't let the trigger pin fall out. And then I'm going to grab my punch, and we're just going to punch out the sear pin and the hammer pin. Neither one needs to be hammered out. You just got to push it out with the punch, and then make sure that you're careful when you do this, because the spring for the sear will pop out 9 times out of 10. So just make sure you don't lose that somewhere. Go ahead and push that out. And then you'll see the spring falls out. The sear will just fall out. And so will the ejector plate. There comes the sear. And you'll see my hammer pin, my trigger pin fell out. So I just put that back in real quick. And then the hammer will just pull it out nice and easy, and it'll come out. You'll also have this come out with your sear. So when you pop your sear pin off, you're going to have the L-shaped lever, the sear spring, and the ejector plate come out. So now once that's done, you get your new hammer, and you'll see inside, zoom back in, get the light in there, inside here you'll see that little spring right there. That spring is what gives the hammer its tension. So when you put the hammer in, you want to put it in and then pull it back underneath that spring. So when you do that, you'll see that there's the little pin in the back of the hammer. That pin is what's going to go underneath that spring. So when you get it in there, you'll have the spring tension from the spring on the hammer. And then go ahead and get your hammer pin, and just slide the hammer pin in between the frame and the hammer. And once you get it lined up, it'll slide right in and slide right out. And you'll know it's good because the hammer will have the spring tension forcing it backwards, so you know that you're in the right spot with that. Then the next step I will do is we'll put the sear back in. So on the ejector plate, you'll see the little pin that comes out of the frame right there. That goes in the first hole of the ejector plate, and that'll slide right in between the hammer and the frame itself. And then for the sear, you're going to want the sear to be in this orientation. So it's going inside and it's sitting like this with the ledge on the right side of the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and grab tweezers and pinch it from the middle and then just fish it in to where it lines up with the holes for the sear pin. It helps if you have a punch. Just use the punch to stick it through and line everything up so that you know you're good. And then we'll go ahead and grab, get it back in there. And go ahead and grab the L-shaped lever, and then that's going to go in the sear, the same hole for the sear pin in this orientation with the long part down and the short part forward. We'll go ahead and slide that in. And then grab a punch to make sure everything lines up again. And then the only thing we have left to put in is the sear spring. So I'm just going to lift the punch out just very carefully. We'll just put the sear spring in there. And then we'll grab the punch again to make sure that everything's lined back up. Then you got everything lined up. Grab the sear pin and then just use the sear pin to push out the punch so that you keep everything lined up the way you want it to be oriented. Then the next step I like to do is to grab the trigger bar spring, and you'll see there's a hooked part and then a flat part. The flat part on the longer arm goes in your frame, and then the hook just goes into that little cutout that I talked about earlier, and that'll put tension back on the trigger pin and give everything a little bit more tension so nothing falls out. Make sure that the sear pin has the equal distance on both sides of the frame rails so you can see when you have it pretty much centered. And then to set the sear spring, you're going to want to push that tail underneath that pin that holds the ejector plate on. Easiest thing I found to do this is a cuticle trimmer. I'll just use the cuticle trimmer to catch the end of the tail and then push it down underneath that pin that's in there. It doesn't matter which way you put the spring in. If you put it in, you can't put it in upside down. As long as both tails are facing forward, you'll be able to set that. And then that is pretty much the hard part of getting all this stuff done. Alright, so when you put the hammer strut in, you're going to want to put it in and kind of put it in and back so that it kind of sits in there like that. If you put it straight up, it's not going to work. You kind of want it to go in and then backwards to when you seat it. Because if it's in the wrong spot, you won't get proper function of your firearm. So we'll just make sure that that gets in there good. It's easy if the hammer's down, so to make sure, try to get it, have it decocked, and then just put your fingers on top of the spring seat so that it keeps the pressure down, and then just push it forward so that it goes up on those hooks. And now we should have proper function of everything, and we'll just go ahead and put the locking block and takedown lever back on, and we're pretty much set. You'll notice on the trigger pin that there's a slot in it. You want that slot to be horizontal to the frame rails, so everything's facing this direction. And there are two slots cut out on the inside of the trigger pin. You want those slots facing like in that angle. And once everything is lined up, just make sure that your slide lock is pushed to the left against the frame. Grab your locking block, put the short end of the spring in that little hole so it looks like that, and you should just be able to drop it right in to where you'll see the spring on the bottom of the hole for your takedown lever. Then you'll notice the slot that's cut out on the back of the takedown lever. Push it so that slot's over the spring, and the spring is up like the takedown lever is up like that, and then give it a twist and you'll feel it push that spring down, and you'll be able to fish the takedown lever back, and then just give it another turn and it'll lock it into place. You'll feel it click in and you're pretty much done. Go ahead and put the slide back on and test function and put the grips back on, and that's it. One thing I will say that I had to do for those of you guys or gals that have an adjustable trigger from either Armory Craft or Gray Guns, the geometry on the hammer is a little bit different, so you're going to have to back out the over travel adjustment on your trigger about half of a turn, because single action wasn't working. The hammer's a little bit tighter, so you're going to have to back out the over travel screw on the trigger itself to get perfect function. Super easy, but just throwing it out there because I was thrown off by it for about 10 seconds until I realized what needed to happen. And yeah, we'll get the last screw in here, give it a function check, and I'll take off. I plan on doing a review of the hammer and any increases in performance that it gives you in a future video, so stay tuned for that. And again, I'll have the coupon codes for the hammer, which is Hammer 5, down below, and I'll also put the coupon codes for the triggers if you want one. There's a flat trigger and the flat curve trigger from Armory Craft. But that's it. I hope this helps some of you guys out on installing this if you wanted to try it yourself, and it's not too bad. It definitely looks freaking super sweet, and I have a feeling it's going to do quite a bit to an actual noticeable difference to performance as well. So we'll go over all that, the changes they made to this in the review, but that's the install video. Hope it helped you guys out, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them below in the comments section. If you haven't already, please subscribe. You can do that by clicking that little circle that pops up there. And remember, if you're looking for a new pet or animal, please adopt. There's thousands of animals looking for a new home, and that home could be with you. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.